What's up, guys? It's Meg Talks Science here. I'm Meg, I talk about science, and today I'm going to be talking about tattoos. Are they good for you? Are they bad for you? Are they neutral? So, as a little disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I was trained as a neuroscientist, but I am someone who's been interested in getting a tattoo for a long time, and I thought that I could share the results of my research with you guys and see what you have to think. As always, I will share the studies and stuff that I find in the description below, so check that out if you're interested in. And yeah, let's get started. So, tattoos are simultaneously ancient and modern. I mean, we found prehistoric mummies with tattoos on them. So, they're quite literally older than our history, and they're a really fundamental part of a lot of cultures, and I don't think that we should take away from that. But tattoos are also really, really modern. I mean, you see tons of young people getting them these days. I really want tattoos. And they're gaining a lot more acceptance in the West, especially in the workplace. So I think that they hold a really interesting balance of being one of the most ancient things that we as a people have done to ourselves, and also a very modern thing that's getting more and more acceptance as we go on. So how do tattoos actually work? Like, what happens? What's going on there when they're needling you? So basically, the needle that does the tattoo is driving the ink into the dermis, which is the second layer of skin. It's underneath your epidermis. And so what that does is it gets it deep enough that it's going to stay, because your epidermis is always changing. Not always, but it frequently changes over, whereas your dermis is the layer of skin that doesn't really change that much. So after you get the ink placed in your dermis, then your immune system will go in to try and heal that tattoo, because you've got a ton of like tiny little wounds basically. And so these macrophages, these immune cells, are going to go in, and some of them are going to carry some of that ink away to be processed further by your immune and other systems. But some of those macrophages are going to go ahead and stay there, and they're basically going to hold the ink into place. And that's part of why tattoos stay for so long. That's also part of why tattoos start to fade over time, because some of those macrophages might die or something. Are tattoos dangerous? So we'll talk more about the actual dangers of tattoos in a sec, but I first wanted to clarify there's no big tattoo conspiracy that we're talking about here. Tattoo parlors are often small businesses. There's no economic push towards pushing you into getting a tattoo. It's a very personal decision. So yeah, I just wanted to say that no, tattoos generally, I mean, while your experience is going to differ with every place that you go to a little bit, it's not like there's some big anti-tattoo or pro-tattoo conspiracy. It's just research. So what are the risks associated with getting a tattoo? In terms of acute risks, as in immediate things that you're going to see right after the fact, the two that you really have to worry about, well, not worry about, they're easily treated, but the two that you have to hold in mind are infection and slight allergic reactions. So in terms of infection, this is usually caused by poor aftercare, because tattooing practices have gotten pretty good over the last few years. So yeah, just keep up on your aftercare, do what your tattoo artist tells you to, and you'll probably be fine. If things look weird, go see a doctor. That's normal, it's fine. In terms of allergic reaction, it's different. It's more up to your immune system. If you've had dermatitis before, then you might be at risk for that. And maybe talk to your doctor before considering a tattoo, just in case. Same if you have a lowered immune system or anything. Just go talk to your doctor and check with them before you make that decision. But in terms of the allergic reaction, that can usually be pretty easily treated with a topical cream, so a cream that you can put on your skin. So if you have a weird feeling, go see a doctor. Those are completely normal. They should know how to deal with them, and you will be okay, but you do have to treat it. So what are the long-term risks associated with tattoos? And this is why I wanted to do this video. So I went looking really hard just to see if there were any long-term risks with tattoos, because I want one. And I did end up finding a potential link between tattoos and cancer. So there's really mixed evidence here. Some researchers say that it's a coincidence and that any relationship between tattoos and cancer isn't really there. Others say that there may be a causal relationship. And in 2025, this year, a study came out of Denmark that was a twin study. So as a biologist, we love a good twin study. because twins are really good controls for one another. They might have similar genetics or similar upbringings and environments. And that means that you can get a lot of information if, say, one of them gets cancer and the other one doesn't. And that was exactly what this study investigated. And what they found was that skin cancer risk was 1.6 times higher in tattooed twins than twins without tattoos. This was especially marked when the tattoo was larger than the size of a palm. So if it was a big tattoo, the twins tended to have more risk. And there was also a heightened lymphoma risk associated with the tattoos. And this makes sense because, like I said earlier, not all the tattoo ink stays in your skin. Some of it ends up getting carried away by your immune system, and a lot of it will end up going to the lymph nodes. And so this can occasionally turn the lymph nodes like a darker color, and it can be a lot harder to tell whether that's cancer or whether that's just the tattoo ink. But one issue with this study was that sun exposure was not examined. And this was due to the design of the study. It's not anyone's fault, but sun exposure is a major risk factor in cancer. So you can take away the information that we got from this study, but definitely keep watching this space. We might see in the future more information coming out for tattoos or against tattoos and the relationship with cancer, but it's a space to watch and only time will tell, honestly. There are no major warnings or anything from like the NHS about long-term risks of tattoos. So right now I would say that it's just a possibility and it's not a surety. So don't freak out if you have tattoos. It's going to be okay. So a special case of tattoos is permanent makeup or semi-permanent makeup or cosmetic tattoos, however you want to call it. Are they an easy way to stop having to apply your eyeliner, or are they a terrifying mistake? That's really up to you to decide. So the dangers of cosmetic tattoos are the same as the dangers of regular tattoos. You might run the risk of like infection and allergic reaction, the huge. However, you do have the added risk of your fashion choice that is permanently on your face falling out of fashion, and that freaks me out. Permanent makeup is usually also red or pink or flesh toned, and these colors run a fairly high risk of, depending on the laser that you use for removal, when you do decide that it was a bad fashion choice, it might turn black the first time that, depending on the laser, it's applied. And this can be fixed with just further laser removal treatments, so it's okay, but it might be a very intense reminder of your decision. So if you're going to go for permanent makeup, I would advise that you think very long and hard about what you like and whether you want to have it there for that long. So how can we as individuals reduce the risk of getting a tattoo? And generally, this is going to depend on where you live. You should look for any accreditation bodies in your area that might license tattoos and the laws governing tattoos. If you live in an area with strict laws governing tattoos, you're probably safe just going to any tattoo parlor. If you live in an area where anyone with a needle can do a tattoo, then I would recommend that you look at reviews and maybe talk to the artist before you get a tattoo done. When you are at the studio, maybe use your eyes, right? So like single-use needles are something to look out for. That's a good thing. Disinfecting all the surfaces. Are they using sterilized equipment? Is the artist wearing gloves? Those are all things that you should keep in mind and talk to the artist about if they're not doing that. And generally, you get what you pay for. A good tattoo artist is probably going to have a few years of experience, and they're going to charge more for that experience. They're also going to be willing to talk through their process with you, but that might be more expensive. So it's an individual level of risk that you're going to be okay with. I would always be willing to pay more to have a good experience, a safe experience, and a good artist, honestly. If you're interested in how we can reduce the level of risk associated with tattoos, especially the long-term risk on a societal level, you would be interested in REACH. So these are new-ish EU regulations that regulate the ingredients that can go into tattoo inks. Certain carcinogens or cancer-causing chemicals are completely banned from inks in the EU. While personally, I think this is a good thing because I worry about those types of things, there are some complaints in tattoo communities that say that compliant inks aren't as bold, and we don't really know whether these inks will last as long. So it is possible that if you go in for like multiple touch-ups, that you end up with more ink exposure in general, which, could be a bad thing. But if you're worried about inks, and especially the carcinogens in traditional tattoo inks, then ask your artist whether they're using REACH compliant inks. Even if you're living in the EU, they may not be, because some artists just really don't like them and are willing to break regulations. A lot of artists are using these inks though, but yeah, just have a chat with them before you go in and see what they think. So, what are my overall thoughts about tattoos after having done all this research about whether they're safe or not? I feel a lot better, actually. I think that short-term issues can clearly be mitigated with like good practices, going to the doctor if something comes up. I feel a lot better now knowing that like any allergic reactions can be treated with just a topical cream. That was something that I was worried about. And of course, if you get an infection, go to the doctor. I think I mentioned it earlier, look for any warnings issued by like the NHS or anything. And all I found was the risk of infection. So it seems like the long-term potential risks of tattoos are just not really an issue that we as like everyday people need to be worrying about yet. Personally, I don't have tattoos, as I said, because my needle phobia is so big. But yeah, who knows? I would definitely be willing to get one. I think that's really cool. So yeah, it is possible that more information does eventually one day come out about dangers of tattoos, and you should know that. And like I said, keep watching that space. But I think at this point, it's all about individual risk management and how much risk you are willing to be in. We are surrounded by so many carcinogens, microplastics every single day. And I think that not getting a tattoo might be to you a way to prevent further risk, or just a way to accept that you are already around so many risks that you can't really control, that you might as well do something fun. So it really is a very personal decision there. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it was informative and maybe you learned something, or maybe you decided whether or not to get a tattoo. If you did get a tattoo, I want to hear about it because that's awesome. And also comment down below if you want to hear about my thoughts on like piercings and stuff, because I got these babies as an adult and I did so much research before I made any of those decisions, and I'd be happy to talk about it if anyone was interested. So like or subscribe if you liked the video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Okay,